see you. Turn around.
The idea was to always think on making this world not a period, rusty, dusty costume drama, but to make it so poignantly, perfectly modern and current that you would be worried looking at these people in the costumes that it could be your mother, your sister, your aunt, your best friend, women with no rights. The tone was, for me, deconstruction. Deconstructing of a thought, deconstruction of a design element, creating the handmaid's dress, and then taking everything away so that there really wasn't a pure structure. Everything has a reason, design element-wise, through the costumes. Nothing is because of beauty or vanity. I will always throw one thing off kilter so that it's uncomfortable for the actor physically, or it's very uncomfortable for the viewer visibly. And it's a psychological pull that you can affect in the clothing if you have time to think about that.
Please welcome Ane Crabtree.
Hello. Thank you for coming. So the person you see up there is a designer speaking to all of you, but I have to tell you the truth. And the truth is that I am an accidental designer. I did not study to be a designer for film and TV. I fell in love with this book when I was in my 20s when it came out as a novel and as a film. And I heard about this show and said, sign me up, because it affected me so much as a young woman. These are sketches from the early parts of me designing for the show. Some are better than others. I will tell you that this is last season's sketches, and this season they are all on Starbucks napkins, very rudimentally drawn and given to my tailors, my poor tailors. Looking for the color red. I want to take you now into the world of Gilead and how we build that world. And first, we start with the color red, and with these handmaids behind me. And the idea was to find the perfect color that looked like lifeblood, or looked like a color that could fit on any skin tone. Behind me are all the photographs that I use, whether as inspiration or real drawings. This is a moment in the studio looking at pregnancy and also headgear. And this was the early on headgear I was designing. This was like hour 20 on a Saturday alone. And it really ended up looking like this. We made about 20 or 30 versions of this headgear because, in essence, you should never use hats to film with because they hide the real estate of the face. But we kept remaking them to let light through, and ultimately it became a beautiful light box for the actors. Some photos of me in Kentucky with my mother and brother, and I say that I'm an accidental designer, because there's nothing in my childhood that would say that I would go on to influence fashion, politics, and film. All of that I attribute to having this rather abstract alien experience as a mixed kid growing up in the projects in Kentucky and sort of rethinking and re-seeing things in my own way. I will say that and that's the reason why you would never think this girl would be a designer today. How many people have seen the ugly hairdos of the 70s and 80s? I love those books. They wouldn't take me when I asked. First photo of Lizzie Moss. I met her an hour before this photo was taken. This is just a muslin. It's, the first kind of garment or pattern that we used. And she fell in love with it and said she wanted to use it on the show, and now wants one to sleep in for herself. Sometimes accidents are like that. You just try something and it works. I started looking research-wise into very, very old paintings, but also modern films and modern fashion for this show. I look at cultures where people are dressed all the same, i.e. the pearl divers in Japan. Certain religious groups and cults have influenced me from all walks of life. This is a shot of Yvonne Strahovski, who plays Serena Joy on the show, and Bruce Miller, our creator, and he's actually telling her what's going to come in a script, that they're going to be praying for a baby in season 2. This is a very abstract photo of 3 windows on a nightgown that I created for the Handmaids in the Red Center, which comes from being in the South, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, but it also comes from me having these reoccurring dreams at 3:33. And when that happens to me, I know that it's a very heightened creative time, so I threw it into the costumes. When actors first meet, they're quite formal, and I asked them to jump up together so they can start to get to know each other. So this is all of them as a family getting to know the little girl, Jordana, who plays Hannah in the show. Again, this was the very first sketch that I made of The Handmaid's Tale, and it looks nothing like the show. That was going to be Aunt Lydia. I kept searching for ways to find modern looks in the clothing. That's me. Ann Dowd, who plays Aunt Lydia, was on the show Leftovers, far away in Australia. So I always try everything on myself because I'm a very normal-shaped woman. I also try the men's clothing on because I think if it fits me and it looks really normal and modern on me, it's going to fit any actor. Joe Fiennes, in his 50s-inspired suits. The show's creator and I are quite enamored of Hitchcock. And so when we look at what's classical in a men's suit, we look towards the 50s and 60s. Joe's staring at the very top left, a painting that inspired a coat that is his favorite thing on the show. So you look at these clothes and you see things that are quite pious, but there's an edge or a bent of modern fashion to them. And that is all by design, because we do not want these clothes to feel like a period drama, like you saw in the trailer. Now we're starting to see images of protests that began happening midway through shooting. Our show closely mirrors what's happening in politics so much that every day it's either politics inspiring the show or us inspiring what's out in the world. And this is a 53-year-old woman, me, teaching a 7-year-old how to be a kid. I'm using pink here because I'm trying to emulate the Handmaids and what could be for these kids when they grow up. And for me, there's nothing more frightening than a child being in these clothes that are quite adult. This is something that was used in season 1. It's going to be huge for season 2. It's going to be huge. It sounds like a fashion thing. It's disgusting. It's a mouth guard that actually silences the women when they're under trial. And again, trying everything on myself first. Alexis Bledel actually hated and then loved this mouthpiece because she couldn't breathe very well, so we had to remake it a few times. But she actually won an Emmy for not speaking a word in that episode. This is around early in the morning, and it's Samira Wiley having worked 20 hours and having a fitting for a dress in Jezebel's. A lot of the garments start out this way. I think of a strong color or the way something drapes, so I throw fabric on an actor and then it turns into something like that. That's the commander's wife, Serena Joy. Again, you know, I'm trying things on myself, but also I'm surrounding myself with teal because I hated the color forever growing up. And now I'm surrounded by it, so I have to fall in love with it and find ways of using it. Econo wives, these are the people that are the everyman kind of women in the show. They're lower class, and the color's gray to meld with Gilead. And it's the closest to clothing that I wear in my everyday life. This was day 2 of shooting The Handmaid's Tale, and we had about 500 extras. The whole world of Gilead had to be up and on the screen by day 2. Early drawing, looking nothing like The Handmaid's Tale, and it looks a little too period. I don't know about most designers, but I start with that and then expand into modern times. A beautiful moment with Lizzie on her first day of fitting. Everything is always pins. I'm showing you this because often it's just a piece of fabric pinned around an actor and it looks nothing like the finished product, but some magic happens exactly at this moment, which was day 2 of our fitting, where I sat back and I knew that I had met Alfred. Even her speech had changed, her mannerisms had changed from having a fitting for 10 hours the day before. And then cut to her later on in the season, feeling like this dress was just another dress that she wears every day. Growing up in Kentucky, there was a lot of scary ear tags on cattle. And so these are early drawings that were inspired from that moment of me as a kid, looking at these guys. I was using antique tags that looked like this, and ultimately they were changed to something that was way easier to shoot. This is a show in New York City where the ear tag was reversed and put on me for a show for Vaquera, which was a young group of designers, a collective that was inspired by the show. Also Erdem in London, and Vera Wang. You know, the show has started to infiltrate even the fashion world. I almost did black wings like you see on this lady here, as I thought it looked more modern. And then we ended up going into white, like you see here, because it was truer to the novel and it looked sort of more religious to all of us. This is how I normally dress every day. That is a costume designer's dream of a working wardrobe. I need a lot of pockets, and it's just easier to move around. RuPaul's Drag Race in the last week or so used the handmaids for inspiration. They look beautiful. Again, this is something very new for season 2. No one has actually seen this costume in person before. Entertainment Weekly did run the photos, but it all started with an idea I had at the Paley Museum with a red face. And the show's creator saw that and said, that is so weird and so scary that I want to write something to it. And so it found its way in the pages for season 2. I'm often just taking photographs of everything on set, even if it doesn't mean I'm taking a photo of a full costume, because I want to be inspired for other ideas down the road. These are the 3 women, or the 3 graces of Gilead. One of the greatest compliments was Margaret Atwood coming to work as an aunt on the show, season 1, and she was in her dressing room and I was petrified because she's a star. And she said, I see Hitler. And that was a hugest, strange compliment because I literally looked to Hitler for the ants and used same military fabric as he used for his costumes, or his real uniform, sorry. It has found its way into a huge political arena globally, and I will say that that is one of the biggest, most beautiful gifts that this show has given me. I would have never in a million years thought that something that was imagined for TV as a birth of a novel would become a movement or a sign of the resistance. And so the best phone calls I get, or the best Twitter, or the best text are from women saying, how do I do that? How do I do The Handmaid's Tale in Texas, or in Illinois, or in Poland, or in Costa Rica? And it's the biggest thrill. It's really turned into something that's had a life of its own. And the Women's March in Toronto. So everything is by accident and accidentally on purpose. And you know, this is a 28-year career that I thought was never going to happen. And everything that happens in this show really is a personal expression for me as a woman, as a daughter of an immigrant, someone who grew up in a place that was quite poor. But I'm able to take all of that and throw it back into the work. And it is the most personal project I've done in all that time. So I really appreciate you coming, and I hope the work speaks to you. Thank you so much.